So it's 8 o'clock, so we'll begin. And today well, maybe I should introduce myself first. I'm Shakyapada, and I'm a member of the Triratna Buddhist order. And I was going to say we're a Western order, but we're not really, because we have lots of members all over the world. But we're a new order. We started in 1968, so we're, in Buddhist terms, we're very new, and we have a teaching of the Dharma from our founder, which is rather different to a lot of schools. Most Buddhist schools have a fairly particular way of teaching the Dharma that's been passed down over centuries. The Dharma is the Buddha's teaching, so we teach Buddhism, or the Dharma, the whole of it really, the whole of the tradition from all the other traditions, really, if you see what I mean. I'm not being very clear this morning. It's early, forgive me. But we teach the whole of Buddhism, really. We teach the bits from lots of different traditions that really help us, and our founder put them all together so that they make sense. And this gives us a very practical approach to Buddhism that really helps us in our life, and is particularly helpful in the West, where we have quite different lifestyles and conditioning to the people in the East. So anyway, that's enough about that. So today we're going to do a meditation called metta bhavana, which is basically translates loving kindness, the cultivation of loving kindness. And we're going to do this today and on Friday. And today we're going to do it for ourselves. And on Friday we're going to do it for ourselves and all other beings. But it's good to start with ourselves, because in the West particularly, we have this idea that I don't know, we're fairly self-critical. In the East, people let things just fly over them. In the West, we tend to be quite self-critical about ourselves. We don't often always feel so good about ourselves. We have a sense of not being good enough sometimes. And that's not to say we're not, in other ways, very well balanced. We may feel quite good about ourselves on many occasions. We might recognize our good qualities, but there is this real mixture of things that can make us unhappy. And I was just thinking that really we spend a lot of our time as human beings chasing happiness, just wanting to be happy. And in a way, that's part of our problem. We do that with ourselves. We sort of go off wishing we were better than we are, wishing that we weren't quite like this or like that. And that just makes us unhappy, actually. So the Buddha said the real way to be happy is just to accept things the way they are. Dead simple, really, and to accept ourselves as we are. So really this meditation that we're going to do this morning is about accepting ourselves as we are, with all our faults, with all our imperfections, even with all those things that we think might be wrong with us. We're still great, we're still good, we're still perfect in our imperfections. And so if we can do that, if we can have this sense of loving kindness towards ourselves, whatever's going on, however we feel, then it just makes life a lot more content and peaceful. We don't have to be perfect. We really don't. We can just be as we are, and that's perfectly good enough at this moment. Okay, maybe we can change. And in a way, that's what Buddhism's about. Well, actually, it's all that Buddhism's about. But maybe we can change. But right now, if we can accept how we are, that helps us to change, because we're beginning to be kinder and more loving and more aware of ourselves. So that's what we're going to do this morning. So if you like to get into your meditation posture, whether that's lying on the bed or lying on the floor or whatever, sitting on a chair, sitting on a meditation stool, it doesn't matter. Just make yourself comfortable in a posture where you can sit for the next 30 minutes, and we'll begin. And I'm going to ring a bell. There's 5 stages in this, and I'm going to ring a bell between each stage and 3 bells at the end so that you know when it's ended. But I'll lead you through it. And we're going to just have half an hour of really looking after ourselves, really looking after this precious self that we have, this precious being that you are. Okay, right. So you can do this with your eyes closed or partly open. Just be comfy. And I'm going to start by reading a poem by Mary Oliver. It's called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscape. Over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. So how are we this morning? Just taking stock, noticing how you feel. Mentally, emotionally, physically. How are you this morning, right now? And however you are, then that's fine. Doesn't matter whether it feels good or bad, positive or negative. It's just where we're beginning from. So the first thing we have to do is to just be accepting of ourselves. Accepting of ourselves exactly as we are right now, without wanting to change anything. Just a sense of kindness to this tender, vulnerable creature that is our being. Noticing how we feel physically, particularly. Bringing our attention to our physical sensations, the weight of our body, pressing down on whatever we're sitting or lying on. perhaps a sense of aliveness, of tingling, if you can feel that. Contact with the bed, floor, chair, cushion. And just allowing yourself to relax, allowing the mind to relax, allowing the body to relax. And noticing the breath coming in to the body and leaving the body. Particularly noticing the breath in the lungs and the upper chest. The chest expanding and contracting as we breathe in and breathe out. As much as you can, really getting lost in this breathing. Getting lost in the chest expanding and contracting. Just really focusing on this area of the body. Bringing your attention down the chest now to the bottom of the rib cage, right in the center of the chest. Right behind here, right behind this part of the body we call the sternum, at the bottom of the ribs in the center, is what we call the heart center, chitta. And this is the place where we feel all our positive emotions. Particularly noticeable on the in-breath. Can you focus on this little area? And just see if you can feel a pleasant feeling there each time you breathe in. This is where we feel love. If you can't notice anything, that's okay. What you can do is to try and bring to mind somebody that you really love. Maybe a person or a pet. Just somebody who you often think of and that makes you have a warm feeling in your body. And just noticing where this warm feeling is. That it's in the heart center. So if we can feel something here, just allowing it to grow and spread. If we can't feel anything, just have a sense of the possibility that something may arise. Just staying open. So in this first stage of this morning's practice, we're just going to take note of all our different aspects. We don't really have one self, we have lots of selves. There's all the bits of ourselves that we feel quite comfortable with. And without thinking too much, just reflecting on what you feel comfortable with about yourself. And rejoicing in those. And then there's all the bits that you might not like so much. And we can have a real sense of kindness towards those. Because they're sometimes painful, aren't they? Sometimes they cause us suffering. So being aware of the bits we don't like about ourselves and having a sense of deep kindness towards them and towards ourselves. Then there are the strong bits and the vulnerable bits. Can we love both just as much? They're both important to us. And the happy bits and the sad bits. The regretful bits. The grieving bits. And the critical bits. All these different feelings, positive and negative, they all go to make up this unique being that you call yourself. And there's no time in your life when you're not doing your best to be okay. So in spite of our imperfections, can we have a real sense of kindness to our multifaceted selves and just wish ourselves well? All the different bits, having a sense of acceptance and care towards ourselves. So now we're going to look at different aspects of ourselves in particular. So in this second stage, we're going to look at ourselves as our own best friend. Can we be a really good friend to ourselves? And how can we do that? Maybe we can imagine what an external good friend would be like. If we're unhappy, they would support us. If we were feeling vulnerable, they would stand by us. If we needed encouragement, they would be there. If we needed help in any way, an external good friend would be there for us. So can we be our own good friend, looking after ourselves, nurturing ourselves, accepting ourselves as we are? With a sense of real kindness and love. Can we see ourselves as our own best friend, taking care of ourselves, mentally, emotionally, physically? And in the third stage, we're just going to conjure up our inner child. This is the part of us that worries about things, the part of us that gets anxious and frightened. It's just like a small child. Scared of what might happen, worried about the future, worried about being good enough, just vulnerable. And if it was a small child, what would we do? We'd take them in our arms, we'd cuddle them, we'd reassure them, we'd try and make it okay. Can we do that for our own small inner child? Can we look after them? Maybe you can even imagine this inner child. Maybe you can bring them to mind in an imaginary way and give them a cuddle. Snuggle up to them, reassure them. Can we try and see this small child within us and resolve to look after him or her? And in the fourth stage, we're going to bring to mind our inner critic. Excuse me. This is the part of us that's always watching, always ready to criticize, always ready to pull to pieces what we've just done. We all, I'm sure, can recognize our inner critic. And we need to give love to this part of ourselves as well. Even though this inner critic is not very nice to us sometimes, it's just frightened. There's just a sense of fear, sense of wanting to be different. So this inner critic is a little bit like the small child, worried, anxious, and frightened. Can we let the inner critic know that actually it's all okay, things are fine? We may not be perfect. Maybe we need to change, maybe we can change, but just for now, we're okay. We don't need to undermine ourselves. We can just have a sense of loving kindness to ourselves and our inner critic. Recognizing what we need to do to change is very good, but being critical of ourselves for needing to change is not. So maybe we can just recognize where we would like to change and just stay there with a kind of sense of love and acceptance. And in the final stage, just bringing an awareness of our whole self again. All these different aspects of ourselves. There's no good and there's no bad. It's just how we are. And maybe we do need to change, maybe we do want to change. but this is where we're starting from. So can we have a sense of deep kindness and love to ourselves, to our fragile, tender being that's always doing its best? Can we feel the love in the heart center? Or wherever we can feel it, and allow it as much as possible to flow through the whole of our being. In a few moments I'm going to ring the bell for the end of the meditation. So when I do, just taking your time to move your body and open your eyes. So I hope you found that useful. I forgot to say at the beginning that in our culture we have this word selfish, don't we? So it's very easy for us to feel guilt about looking after ourselves. And in fact, if we don't look after ourselves, we can't look after anybody else properly. So it's really important that we do take self-care very seriously. And there isn't a word for this kind of metta or loving kindness in our language. We tend to say selfish or self-centered, and they've all got these negative connections. So we need to let go of those and just take care of ourselves and be aware of the need to do that.